have the blue sheet because there were a few minor changes. So we're going to take a motion to approve what's on the blue sheet, and then Julie and Heather will be going through the list for us. So could I have a motion? Betty, second. Brandy, okay.
Sorry, just getting organized here. Thank you all for allowing us to do a special meeting for this. First, I want to welcome back Julie, who has been out for a little while. We're glad to have her back. She's been a huge help in getting everything ready for today, in addition to everything else. So just I kind of want to go a little bit over like the historical process, especially for the new board members. So county practice has been that we allow December invoices to be processed through February 28th. So normally we would come to the board in March for the committee meeting and April to the board meeting for the packet that you have in front of you today. You're all also very familiar with, we just did an update, conversion to a new accounting system from Munis, or to Munis from Penimation. And there are a lot of great things about Munis, one of them being that you are not allowed to enter or pay any invoices that take a department over budget. That's a good thing. In Penimation, we were able to do that, and thus the reason why we could wait until March and April to do that, because we were still able to maintain, continue county business and pay our bills for fiscal 22 that had been appropriated and needed to be spent by the county. So we're in a position now where we were going to come to the board with the few departments that are over budget for fiscal 22 and ask for an appropriation, and we have included the normal appropriations that we would request for those that aren't over budget also. So those items that we roll over that have been appropriated and encumbered as well. So just to highlight a few, you have all the detail in your packet and in the floor amendment or the amendment attachment. But just to highlight a few items, we have highway. Amy had come to the board, I believe, a couple times last year, and just kind of giving you a heads up that she anticipated they would be over on fuel because fuel expenses have gone up so much, and she was correct. So you'll see that line item in there, in addition to overtime for snow plowing. We can't control the weather, and when it snows on the weekend, we have to pay overtime to clear the roads. We have facilities and the jail requesting additional for utilities because energy costs have gone up. And then we also have the coroner's office for some unanticipated inflated medical expenses and some overtime. The other items are just to highlight a couple. The first line item on there is for election equipment that the board had approved, I believe in January of last year. We just need to make that transfer from the general fund to cover the expenses for that, because it cannot be paid out of the capital fund because it's mainly funded by public facility sales tax. There's some grant funds that need to be rolled forward. We need to cover some expenses that went over in the risk management fund. We had higher than anticipated legal expenses and workers' comp expenses this year. So those are just a few to highlight. And then finally, the ARPA funds, anything that was budgeted but not encumbered in fiscal 22, we're rolling those revenues forward, as well as the line items that were budgeted for that. So we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions? Steve?
guess from a timing, why did we wait on the election commission equipment? Because we approved that early in the year, last year, before the primary. I guess I kind of lost track the fact that we all agreed that we were going to use general fund to fund it. I think that was so I guess I'm asking the question, why did we wait till now to reappropriate the money for 2022 as opposed to doing it when it occurred?
Well,
They're looking at me. I'll answer that question as best I can. And remember, Rick, no real specific reason, other than to, potentially see where at the year end where things shook out. But I've obviously it was always our intent to do this. Yes, we could have brought it forward sooner, but we didn't. No other explanation than that.
Anything else, Steve? Steve, I have a question for you, since we were involved in that process. I thought that the training and the consultant was part of the contract. Do you remember that?
Yeah, as memory goes, there was user training for the system.
Yes.
And consulting for the first primary election that was part of the contract. I think since then, since we changed directors at the Election Commission,
Okay.
Director Gannon hired consultants for the general election just to make sure everything went as planned, but
Okay.
that was an additional add,
Okay.
as I recall.
Okay, thank you
Yep.
for that. I wasn't sure
Yep.
on that. So, are there any other questions? No more questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, that's passed unanimous. Next is revised financial policies. Can I get a motion to put that on the floor? Brandy, Eden, okay.
All right. Hello to everyone who I've not met. You should see my face often, so welcome. What we have before you is an amendment to our financial policies. Typically, during the budget, we will review the financial policies, and anything that needs to be amended, we will do that at that time. During the implementation of our financial software, in January, we went live. It became apparent that we need another amendment to our financial policies. Practice in Penimation was that POs that were encumbered and unspent in the prior fiscal year were able to be rolled over one by one into the next fiscal year. In our new software, it functions differently, and so what we are requesting is a change to the policy in which, in order to keep continuity of business practice, we are asking that after approval of the county administrator, so when we go to close our fiscal year, we can't roll over any unspent POs until we close the fiscal year. That happens sometimes in March time frame. That's our expected one for this new year, this new time. And then the system will automatically do that as a process. So instead of doing it after the fact where we say, county board, these are the POs we rolled over, can we appropriate the funds? What we're requesting is after Scott reviews the list and we get the approval for him, we'll roll over all of those funds and then we'll report to the board that amount in a detailed list. I just lost my train of thought. Did I miss anything? I had something I was just going to add. We have a current list in that we estimated from what was entered from manually from the old system into Munis. So this is what we believe is the max that will be rolled over. We just want to give you an estimate of what that will be.
I think you also wanted to point out that the purchase orders have already gone through the process of approval, review and approval, and they're encumbered funds. A lot of them, a lot of them either, were entered near the end of the fiscal year or earlier in the fiscal year, and because of either supply chain issues or some sort of delay, we haven't received everything by the end of December 22. Just because we change a fiscal year doesn't mean like one day is more unique than the next. So but in the system, it forces us to wait until we close the system, and we need to pay these bills. So.
Are there any questions? Steve?
I think I follow the process change of basically creating a new PO for the new fiscal year. So as you gather that up in the future actions, the board would approve those new, not rollovers, but I guess equivalent of a rollover, right? So every year going forward, there will be an action, and there'll be an action in March to approve that for this list, or is this action all tied in this discussion?
So what the policy is requesting, which is different from prior impedimation, because we could roll over one by one, we knew the exact dollar amount when we came to you in March, because all the expenses were encumbered. With our current software system, we could still do similar, but there could be a month gap between when we close the fiscal year to when the board appropriates that money. So what this policy is requesting is that funds are already budgeted for and already appropriated and approved through our purchasing policy on a PO, that the board grants permission to roll those already budgeted, already approved through the purchasing policy POs to roll over, so that we don't have any disruption in our business process. And then we'll still report to the board what that dollar amount is. It's just the action to approve those appropriations are in perpetuity moving forward. Does that make sense? Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Are there any nays? Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, any public comment? Miscellaneous? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. We'll take a couple-minute break before we start the Rules Committee.
Board members, refresh your iPads for